I know we all have things we go through, ups and downs in this world, but I praise the Lord that He is there to be with us, to go through these things, and He can help us come out on the other end victorious, and we can say all things work together for good for them that love the Lord. We may not always understand how and why He does things, but we do know that He takes things, and good and bad, and makes awesome things out of them. So we praise the Lord. We've been doing a Bible study on Joseph, Jacob's first son from his second wife, Rachel, in the Old Testament. And of course, later on, Jacob is known as Israel. And he had 12 sons. And Joseph is, I believe, the 11th son. And then the 12th one is Benjamin. And Jacob had both of them later on in his years, when he was much older. And so the sons he had from Leah, which was his first wife, the first 10 sons, they were all older than Joseph and Benjamin. And we discussed, this is part 4 in our study on Joseph, and we're calling it Joseph's Purpose, because when we're all done studying Joseph, we will see that there were quite a few things that if it had happened to us, we would be upset about. And he might have been. It doesn't really show him, it doesn't really give a whole lot of clues in scriptures that he was upset about it, but I'm sure he was. It doesn't give a whole lot of clues that he was hurt about it, but I'm sure a lot of these things hurt him. But he had the right attitude, and in spite of the bad things that happened to him, he did his best to do what God wanted him to do, and he served the Lord, and God blessed him for that. And so we've been studying about that. He wasn't a perfect man. It's my understanding when he was 17, he tattled on his brothers, and that made him mad. All of his brothers were half-brothers except for Benjamin, and he was too young to be out dealing with the flock, so he wasn't involved in that. But he was also a dreamer, and when he dreamed, God would give him interpretation. God would give him the dreams and then give him an interpretation of the dreams, and they would come true. We have also learned that he was his father's favorite son, and if you go back before his father married Leah, you find out that his father was really wanting to marry Rachel, who is Leah's younger sister. But back in those days, they wanted the older daughter to be married off before the younger ones, and so they kind of tricked him into marrying Leah, because she was the oldest one, and then he had to work some more in order to earn the right to marry Rachel. But Rachel gave him 2 sons, Joseph, and Joseph was his favorite because that was his favorite wife, because Rachel's the one he wanted to marry. He never really wanted to marry Leah. He just did that because he was tricked. And then he took care of her, like he should. He did the right thing by her, but he didn't really, that's not his favorite. I'm sure he grew to love her to a certain degree, but Rachel's the one that had stolen his heart from the very beginning. And so her oldest son was his favorite, and even though he didn't really say that, back then the oldest son usually inherited his father's assets that he had at a certain time. And Reuben was his first son from Leah, So he, in that situation, Reuben would be the 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 heir. He would be the heir. But because Rachel was Jacob's favorite wife, he, even though he didn't make a statement saying that Joseph, his oldest son from his favorite wife, was going to be his heir, he basically, when he gave Joseph the coat of many colors, that's basically what that speaks of. In his mind, Joseph was supposed to be the heir. So, needless to say, between the tattling, the dreams, and the coat of many colors, and knowing that Joseph was their daddy's favorite, he loved all of them, but Joseph was his favorite, it caused a lot of contention. It caused jealousy. And so we've been watching this, and even they got they turned against Joseph one day when they were all the older boys were out in the field taking care of the flocks, and they just decided they didn't want Joseph around anymore, and they came up with a plan. Some of the younger ones wanted to kill Joseph, and Reuben talked them out of that, and they put him in a well, and it was a dry well. It didn't have water in it, it's what I understood. And then when a group of people came by, they sold him as a slave. But their original plan was to kill him, but Reuben talked him into selling him as a slave to this group. And then this group sold him to Potiphar. And anyway, along the way, he was falsely accused of attacking Potiphar's wife, but he had done so many good things that Potiphar had put him above all of his affairs. And so that greatly hurt him. First his brothers betrayed him and sold him into slavery, and then and then they told his dad that he was dead, and they put blood of a goat on his coat of many colors and took him to his dad so his dad would believe him. But Potiphar, he had great respect for Joseph until he thought that Joseph attacked his wife. And she was after Joseph, and he refused her advances, and she got mad, and so she came up with this lie. And so anyway, he ended up in prison, but he found favor with the warden of the prison as well, because he did that which was right in the sight of the Lord in spite of what others had done to him, and he treated people right. So whatever you're going through, when you treat people right in spite of them treating you wrong, God shows you favor in some way or another. And so he was put in charge of the prisoners. But he was still in prison, so he wasn't free to roam around. Anyway, a couple of the prisoners had a dream, a butcher and a baker, and he interpreted that, and the dream came true. And later on, Pharaoh had a dream, and he wanted it interpreted, and anyway, it came to pass that he was informed that Joseph could interpret dreams, and so he got Joseph out of the prison, and that's kind of where we're at right now. We're getting ready to read in Genesis chapter 42. In 41, let's see. Okay. Genesis, all of that I was talking about occurred in Genesis 37, 39, and Genesis 40. Then in Genesis 41, Pharaoh has a dream, and Joseph is brought out of prison to interpret it. And we brought out the fact that every time when he interpreted these dreams, he let people know the interpretation's not from me. The interpretation is from God. God's the one. He gave, he didn't take any credit for anything God did. And so I believe a lot of his blessings had to do with that too as well. So in 41, let's see. All right, in 41, it is brought. We brought out last time we did a Bible study how that because of his good behavior and because he was able to interpret Pharaoh's dream, Pharaoh had two of them. One involved cows and one involved ear of corn, and in both dreams, in the cows, there were 7 fat cows and 7 lean cows, and the 7 lean cows ate the 7 fat cows, and the 7 fat ears of corn were eaten by the 7 lean ears of corn. And Joseph interpreted it, and he said the 7 years was 7 years of plenty. That's the fat cows and the fat ears of corn. And then the lean, the 7 years was for famine. They were going to have a famine in the land. And we're talking about Egypt, and the Pharaoh over Egypt was also included some of the surrounding places in Canaan, and Canaan's where Jacob and his 11 remaining sons lived. So it came to pass that, and when he told him about this, Pharaoh decided to put Joseph, take him out of the prison, keep him out of the prison, and put him over all the food, the grain and stuff, and to prepare for the famine, because they were going to have 7 years of plenty and then 7 years of famine. And so Joseph not only did that, but he planned it to where the plenty was not only enough to take care of the immediate kingdom of Egypt, but also some of the surrounding countries, including Canaan, or the surrounding areas. I don't know if they were all called countries or not, but so he made storehouses to store the grain and stuff, so they would have plenty during the 7 years of famine. So it got to where he had so much stored up he couldn't count it all. It was like the cup runneth over. The cup was full, but it runs over. So he has plenty to help with others. And so because of his good planning and organization and doing things God's way, and he was a man of integrity, very high integrity. So anyhow, when the famine, the plenty was over, and the famine came, that's where we're at now. Jacob and his 11 sons are experiencing the famine. Now, in a famine, you can have money, but the money doesn't do you any good if there's no food to buy. If that, and so that's where they're at. They've got money, they just need food. And so we're going to start, I'm going to ask Dave to. Dave's using the King James Version, and Jesse's using the Living Bible, and I'm using the Amplified, and we'll each read a few verses, and we'll open it up for discussion. The one who's reading the verses, if you have a comment to make in the middle of your reading, feel free to go on ahead and make it, and then after you're done reading, I'll let anybody that has a comment or a question to go on ahead and ask before we have the next person do their reading. But Dave, if you would read Genesis chapter 42, verses 1 through 7, I would sure appreciate it.
Now when Jacob saw that there was corn in Egypt, Jacob said unto his sons, Why do ye look one upon another? And he said, Behold, I have heard that there is corn in Egypt. Get ye down thither, and buy for us from thence, that we may live and not die. And Joseph's 10 brethren went down to buy corn in Egypt. But Benjamin, Joseph's brother, Jacob sent not with his brethren, for he said, Lest peradventure mischief befall him. And the sons of Israel came to buy corn among those that came. For the famine was in the land of Canaan. And Joseph was the governor over the land, and he it was that sold to all people of the land. And Joseph's brethren came and bowed down themselves before him with their faces to the earth. And Joseph saw his brethren, and he knew them, but made himself strange unto them, and spake roughly unto them. And he said unto them, Whence come ye? And they said, From the land of Canaan, to buy food.
Any comments? Of course, in the previous chapters, just a remembrance type thing, there was a couple of dreams that Joseph had that, when interpreted, it showed his family members bowing down to him. And that was another thing his brothers were upset about. That they didn't feel like, with him being a younger brother, that they should show that kind of respect to him, and they didn't like that, the dreams that implied that the family would be bowing down to Joseph. Well, right here, when the brothers come across with Joseph, they don't recognize Joseph. Joseph has changed and probably did a few things to make himself look a little bit different. A bunch of years had gone by. So it's my understanding he was probably about 30 years old at this time. When they last saw him, he was 17 or thereabouts. He was a teenager. And so here's part of that dream coming to pass, because with him being a governor, they bowed down to him. Okay. Any other comments on those verses? Nope. Okay. Josie, will you read verses 8 through 14, please? Chapter 42. 8 through 14. Don't forget your mic. I think you were doing it. I didn't give you enough time to turn your pages. Sorry.
Then Joseph remembered the dreams of long ago, but he said to them, You are spies. You have come to see how destitute the famine has made our land. No, no, they exclaimed. We have come to buy food. We are all brothers and honest men, sir. We are not spies. to when?
Go to including 14.
Yes, you are, he insisted. You have come to see how weak we are. Sir, they said, there are 12 of us brothers, and our fathers is in the land of Canaan. Our youngest brother is there with our father, and one of our brothers is dead. So Joseph asked, what does that prove? You are spies.
Okay, any comments on that? If I understood in verse 8 and 9, Joseph recognized his brothers, but his brothers did not recognize him. So when you put that together with him accusing them of spies, he's got an ulterior motive. He knows they're not spies. He's setting them up to prove they're not spies in order for him to get to see family members that are not with them. And that becomes more apparent as we read further on. But he's got them worried now, because spies are usually put in prison, and the outcome is not normally good. So they're trying to prove that they are not spies. They're put in that position. All right, I'm going to read verses 15 through 24 in the Amplified. In this way you shall be tested. By the life of Pharaoh, you shall not leave this place until your youngest brother comes here. He's wanting to see his full-blooded brother Benjamin. Have to kind of read between the lines here. All right. Send one of you back home and let him bring your brother here, while the rest of you remain confined, so that your words may be tested to see whether there is any truth in you and your story, or else by the life of Pharaoh, certainly you are spies. Then Joseph put them all in prison for 3 days. Now Joseph said to them on the third day, and he's got to instill fear into them in order to get them to do what he's wanting to do, or they might not do it. And so he's doing a pretty good job of getting them to fear, because he put them in prison for 3 days. Now Joseph said to them on the third day, do this and you may live, for I fear God. If you are honest men, let one of your brothers be confined in your place here in prison. But as for the rest of you, go carry grain for the famine in your households, but bring your youngest brother to me, so your words will be verified and you will not die. So he's going to let him go on ahead and take grain, so the family won't die of starvation while they're gone trying to get some grain. Then verse 21, and they said to one another, truly we are guilty regarding our brother Joseph, because we saw the distress and anguish of his soul when he pleaded with us to let him go, yet we would not listen to his cry. That's when they sold him as a slave. So this distress and anguish has come on us. Now, even though they didn't recognize that was Joseph, they connected this hard time with more or less a punishment for them mistreating their brother. Reuben answered them, did I not tell you, do not sin against the boy? And you would not listen. Now the accounting for his blood is required of us, for we are guilty of his death. They did not know that Joseph understood their conversation, because he spoke to them through an interpreter. See, there's another thing he did. It wasn't just about the fact that he had changed, his appearance looked different, to make it hard for them to recognize, but he was giving the impression that he spoke a different language, and he had to have somebody interpret for him. So they did not connect the dots that was their brother, because their brother would have understood their language. So they did not know that Joseph understood their conversation because he spoke to them through an interpreter. He turned away from his brothers and left the room and wept. Then he returned and talked with them and took Simeon, which I believe is the second to the oldest son. The oldest one was Reuben and then Simeon, if I understood it correctly. He took Simeon from them and bound him in front of them to be kept as a hostage in Egypt. Now, I made my comments while I was reading, so anybody else have anything else to add to that? What I think is neat is I don't have any clue in any of this that he's doing it out of resentment for what they did to him. He's doing it because he wants to see his brother Benjamin and perhaps his father. And so, his attitude, even though he's being tricksy, his attitude was not hateful. All right, Mr. Dave, would you read verses 25 through 34, please?
Then Joseph commanded to fill their sacks with corn, and to restore every man's money into his sack, and to give them provision for the way. And thus did he unto them. And they laded their donkeys with the corn, and departed hence, or thence. And as one of them opened his sack to give his donkey provender in the inn, he espied his money, for behold, it was in his sack's mouth. And he said unto his brethren, My money is restored, and lo, it is even in my sack. And their heart failed them, and they were afraid, saying one to another, What is this that God hath done unto us? And they came unto Jacob, their father, unto the land of Canaan, and told him all that befell unto them, saying, The man who is the Lord of the land spake roughly to us, and took us for spies of the country. And we said unto him, We are true men, we are no spies.
32 through 34.
We be 12 brethren, sons of our father. One is not, and the youngest is this day with our father in the land of Canaan. And the man, the lord of the country, said unto us, Hereby shall I know that ye are true men. Leave one of your brethren here with me, and take food for the famine of your households, and be gone. And bring your youngest brother unto me. Then shall I know that ye are no spies, but that ye are true men. And so will I deliver you, your brother, and ye shall traffic in the land.
That traffic means trade or do business. You got any comments, Mr. Dave, so far? Josie, you got any? No? Okay. It pretty much speaks for itself. It's just telling what happened. All right, Josie, would you read verses 35 till the end of the verse? I mean, the end of the chapter.
As they emptied out the sacks, there at the top of each was the money paid for grain. Let's see. Terror gripped them as it did their father. Then Jacob exclaimed, You have bereaved me of my children. Joseph didn't come back. Simon is gone. And now you want to take Benjamin too. Everything has been against me. Then Reuben said to his father, "Kill my 2 sons. If I don't bring Benjamin back to you, I'll be responsible for him." But Jacob replied, "My son shall not go down with you, for his brother Joseph is dead, and he alone is left of his mother's children. If anything should happen to him, I would die."
Okay. So they're in a... You got any comments before I open my mouth? So they're in a terrible situation. They're caught in between two. They're, uh, they can't get their brother Simeon back unless they bring Benjamin for Joseph to meet, and their dad doesn't want to let Benjamin go because that's the last one of Rachel's kids, and he's afraid he's going to lose Benjamin as well, and he's already in sorrow over Simeon and Joseph. So what a situation to be in. We're not going to read all of 43 because it's already 8:25, but let's read a little bit farther. Dave, would you read chapter 43, verses 1 through 7, please?
And the famine was sore in the land, and it came to pass, when they had eaten up the corn which they had brought out of Egypt, their father said unto them, Go again, buy us a little food. And Judah spake unto him, saying, The man did solemnly protest unto us, saying, Ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. If thou wilt send our brother with us, we will go down and buy thee food. But if thou wilt not send him, we will not go down. For the man said unto us, Ye shall not see my face, except your brother be with you. And Israel said, Wherefore dealt ye so ill with me, as to tell the man whether ye had yet a brother? And they said, The man asked us straitly of our state and of our kindred, saying, Is your father yet alive? Have ye another brother? And we told him according to the tenor of these words. Could we certainly know that he would say, Bring your brother down?
Okay, any comments? No. So they knew Joseph meant business, and they were not going to return unless they had Benjamin with them. And when their father said, Well, why'd you even tell him you had another brother? And they held up for themselves and said they were just answering the questions the man Joseph was asking. Of course, they didn't know it was the brother Joseph. They defended themselves by saying, well, how are we to know if we answered those questions that then they'd want us to bring the youngest brother up the next time? So that's where we leave off there. I think, Josie, we have enough time to read a few more verses, and then we'll continue next time we get together. Josie, would you read verses 8 through 14, please?
Okay. Judah said to his father Send the lad with me, and we will be on our way. Otherwise, we will all die of starvation, and not only we, but you and all our little ones. I guarantee his safety. If I don't bring him back to you, then let me bear the blame forever. For we could have gone and returned by this time if you had let him come." So their father Israel finally said to them, "If it can't be avoided, then at least do this. Load your donkeys in the best products of the land. Take them to the man as gifts: balm, honey, spices, myrrh, pistachio nuts, and almonds. Take double money so that you can pay back what was in the mouths of your sacks, as it was probably someone's mistake. And take your brother and go. May God Almighty give you mercy before the man, so that he will release Simon and return Benjamin. And if I must bear the anguish of their deaths, then so be it." Did you say 15? Or oh.
That's a good place right there.
Okay.
Yeah. So he's finally going to release Benjamin because he sees how it's going to affect all the rest of the relatives. If he doesn't, they'll all die. And he's not happy about it, but he finally agrees to it. And so next time we'll find out what happens from there. Is there any comments on